We're rolling.
Okay, this is an interview at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York, 22nd of June 2005, approximately 1:15 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Harold J. Wiley. I was born in the town of Pittstown, Rensselaer County, New York, March 14th, 1919.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
I went to the district school, a one-room schoolhouse, until I was finished 8th grade, and then I went to Hoosick Falls High School, graduated in 1937, and then I stayed home a year in 1938. I went to Morrisville Tech School, automotive engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated there in June of 1940 and worked in Syracuse in the garage until September, when I went to Chinook Field and joined the Air Force.
Now, you enlisted in September 1940. Why did you decide to enlist?
Because the draft was getting close.
Okay.
And I was right for the draft.
Okay. Now, you chose the Army Air Corps at the time. It was called the Air Corps. Why did you make that decision?
Well, I've always loved airplanes ever since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I honored Army pilots. I thought they were one of the greatest flyers there were, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always in the back of my mind as a teenager to get into flying in some way. So
Had you ever flown?
just once in North Stinson, I guess, at a local airport.
Mm-hmm.
I've never
Okay.
had any experience flying, no.
Okay. All right. So when you enlisted in September of 1940, where did you go to enlist, and where did you go for basic training and so on?
Well, I was advised by the recruiter in Syracuse to pay my own way to Chinook Field, Illinois, where the Air Corps had a tech school. And I did that, and I got there later in September, I don't know, just when it was 1940. And I went through all the school there, all the different parts of the airplane, engines and fuselage and all that, and graduated from there. I guess it must have been the next year, probably in the early part of 41.
Okay. So where were you when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, I was in Bangor, Maine, in the bomber group in Bangor, Maine.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you hear about it, and what was your reaction?
Well, I was stationed in Bangor, and it was on a Sunday, and I had a girlfriend, so I picked up my girlfriend that day, and we were riding around in different parts of Maine, Bangor, close by Bangor, and had a portable radio in the car. All of a sudden it came on the radio that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And of course the news came right over the radio that our air base was closed at the time, put on emergency status. So that was, I was off the base actually when it happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, what type of aircraft were you working on at that time?
B-18s and B-17s.
Okay.
See, when I got out of Air Corps mechanic school, I was assigned to 43rd Bomb Group in Langley Field.
Mm-hmm.
And they had all B-17s. That was the old B-17 with a small tail, this B-17C.
Okay.
And I worked as a mechanic there for a while, and then they moved us during the summer of 41. They moved up to Bangor, Maine. It was a new air base, and we were the first group to move in there.
Okay.
So that's where I was when Pearl Harbor happened.
Okay. How long were you up in Maine?
Well, not very long after war started. At that time I was a radio operator on the B-17 or B-18, and the next day they put us right on patrolling the Atlantic from Bangor down to Westover Field. And I was acting as a radio operator because we were looking for submarines.
Mm-hmm.
And that went on for a few days, and of course everything was so upset at the air base the group, 43rd group was getting ready to move out, and they put me on a cadre. That's a small group, and they sent me to Geiger Field in Boise, Colorado, with say 4 or 5 officers and maybe a couple dozen mechanics and airmen to start another group.
What rank were you at that point?
I was sergeant.
Okay.
And then in Boise, I was assigned to the 303rd Bomb Group, which was forming then for combat duty. They were getting crews and getting pilots and putting them together there. And I should tell you before that when I was in Bangor, I took the aviation cadet examination, and I flunked it because I fainted. So I went out to Boise, and I was assigned to a B-17 as the engineer on the flight crew. And I got thinking to myself, boy, this is getting pretty close to combat. So I took the test again, and I passed it in Boise. And so that took me right off the bomber crew, and they sent me home for 3 weeks until I could get into the training course on the West Coast, which I did, and I started in Santa Ana, California, for the aviation cadet training.
Was that a pilot course you were taking?
Yes, it was a pilot course, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What was the program like? What did you do and what did you learn as an aviation cadet?
Well, we covered pretty everything. Of course, they started in with just the basics of flying, and then we took navigation, and we took weather, and of course mechanics comes into it, and hydraulics, and everything pertaining to aircraft.
Now, were you on the B-17 all this time? Is that what you trained on, were B-17s?
Well, I left the B-17 completely.
Right.
I mean, that was out of my picture.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm going into cadet training now, and there's all just a bunch of young guys in cadet training. And so we went through, it was in Santa Ana, and of course there's no airplanes there. That was just a basic course, you might say.
The ground school, more or
Ground
less.
school, absolutely. And then when I finished Santa Ana, I was sent to Tulare, California, for primary training, for flight training. And we had the old PT-17 Stearmans at Tulare. And Tulare was a civilian school, but the Army had taken it over for training pilots. And I got in about 60 hours, I guess, flying there.
How did you like the Stearman?
Beautiful airplane, you know. Had to be careful of the ground loop. But I got through. I had a check ride. The guy, the instructor said, or the basic instructor, the head of the instructor, he said, "I want to check ride you." I said, "Okay." So we went up and check ride, and we did some maneuvers, you know. He said, "You feel all right?" I said, "Yeah." I go, "I'm all right." He said, "Gee, you blacked me out." So he said, "You're okay to go ahead." So then I went on to basic flying school. It's little bigger airplanes. They were BT-17s. That was in Lancaster, California.
Okay, how long were you on them?
Well, about the same number of hours. I think it was 70 hours of flying.
Okay. So finally, how long did it take you before you graduated?
There?
Yes.
Well, it's hard to tell you what the number of months, but it was several months. And then you more or less had a little choice if you wanted to go to fighter planes or you wanted to go to twin engine or 4-engine. So I went to the twin engine school in Roswell, New Mexico, and we flew there with on the Cessna Bobcat. We had a lot of those, and the 18-9 was twin engine, and that's where I completed my training for flying. That was probably another 60 or 70 hours, I imagine, there. And that's where I was commissioned as a first lieutenant when I graduated from Roswell. Not a first lieutenant, second lieutenant, I should say. That was April 12th, 1943. 43.
All right. You graduated from there, and were you assigned a crew, or did you go for any additional
No,
training?
from there, we just still had a choice, a little choice of what we wanted to fly. And I said, gee, I want to fly B-17 because I knew the B-17 being a mechanic on it. And so they sent me to Hobbs, New Mexico. That was a transition training for the B-17s.
Mhm.
Quite a lot of my class went with me, of course.
What was it like to go from your two-engine aircraft to the B-17?
Quite an experience.
In what ways?
Well, to handle the thing in the first place, because we had an instructor that had just come back from the Pacific, he'd been flying B-17s over there. And so there was two of us taking the training, and another fellow myself. And so he got in the co-pilot seat, and I got in the pilot seat, and the instructor stood between us and showed us how to taxi the thing, and we got out on the runway, and he was kind of sitting there and hesitating. He said, "You going to fly it or not?" I said, "Well, yes." Now, I had 4 throttles to take care of, but I only had 2. And I said, "How do you steer this thing?" He said, "Well, throw the throttles ahead." So he reached in and he shoved those 4 throttles ahead, and away we went. I got it off the ground all right. So we had good training there, wonderful training.
Okay. When were you eventually assigned a crew?
Well, when we finished the combat, or the B-17 transition training, I was sent to Spokane, Washington, to pick up my combat crew. And they came in from different schools, the gunnery school, navigator school, and the bombardier school. And they all got together there, just didn't know each other or anything. Just 9 more guys joined me. That's the sort of size of it.
Okay. Did you basically stay with that crew the entire war?
Yeah, right.
All
Yeah.
your missions? Okay.
We stayed together and we flew from a lot of training there. We had night training and we had navigation training and bombardiering and we actually went on a gunner range. They had laid up in the desert models of tanks and stuff, and we'd have to fly by and let the gunners shoot at those, for practice for the gunners. And we had a lot of hours there until well, it was late '43, I guess, when we finished our combat training.
Now, did you pick a plane up and fly overseas?
No, we we were sent by train to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and from there we boarded the Queen Elizabeth
Oh, okay.
on a trip to England. We were on the ship 5 days, traveled alone with no escort.
Okay, what happened when you reached England? Where did you go? Where
We
did
got off
you
to
go?
Scotland, and they took us down
Scotland.
to the shore and to they called it some kind of a center where all a bunch of crews were sent into this one big center,
A replacement center?
like a
or-
replacement center, right? And the crews from there would go to different bomb groups, and we
Well,
were.
you went in as a whole crew. You didn't go in, piecemeal, one at a time.
Oh,
into
no, our
other
crews stayed
groups,
together.
so-
We were
okay.
all one family. Very close group. You get that way very
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
And so we were only there a few days, and we were assigned to the 305th Bomb Group in Shelveston, England. And because they had a big loss on that Schweinfurt raid in August of '43, and we must have been September when we joined them, to fill in where they had lost so many planes. In fact, out of 18 planes that day, they had only 1 come home.
Wow.
Wow.
So they tried to scare us.
Yeah. Okay. When did you do your first mission?
December 30th, 1943. I flew as a co-pilot with another experienced combat crew. They had every new crew do that. So So the pilot would at least have one raid in before he took the
Mhm.
whole crew. Yeah. We had no problem that day. We down southern part of France.
Now, when you're with your crew, did you fly in the same plane all the time, or did you
Well,
do different planes, or?
when we got, well, I guess as soon as we got there, they told us that they had a new plane for us, and we had to fly up to Scotland where they had a big depot, and we picked up a new plane. And,
Oh. Okay, go ahead.
okay. So we picked up a new plane and brought it back to the base, and our CO said, well, you guys got a new plane, you can name it, because every plane had some kind of name
Right.
on it. So we all hashed it around, we decided on Reich's Ruin. So that was our name of our plane. And,
Now, how did you pick that name?
well, we just jazzed it around amongst us, the whole crew. One guy wanted to name it after a beer outfit. I said, nah, I don't want to name it after a beer outfit. He said he was from Milwaukee. So we decided on Reich's Ruin, and it was good. So,
Did you have something else on there besides the name, like any kind of nose art?
no, that was just it. Reich's Ruin written right on the side of the nose. Yeah.
Okay.
And the next day, on December 31st, was our first raid as a crew. That was the last day of December '43. And that was an experience for us because, see, we had a ruling that if you come back home and it's socked in, we had a precision way of breaking the formation and flying out so many seconds this way and then let down through it, see, so you wouldn't, because the formation wouldn't be separated. So we did that, and we got down, the fog was pretty close to the ground. We were just skimming along the top of the ground, and our fuel was getting low because we'd been out coming back from the raid, and I said to the co-pilot, I said, give us an emergency call. Well, the emergency call at that time was darky, darky, darky. So he started calling darky, darky, darky on the radio, and in England, they had in their airfields, 4 or 5 miles out, they had a light, so it made a funnel to the airport, like that, see? So he looked down and he said, hey, there's a funnel. I said, what? Yeah. He said, follow that right in. So we did, and followed it in and landed, and it was a photo reconnaissance base. And we parked the airplane all right, and the guys all got out, and of course that was New Year's Eve. And they had a great time. And we all went up to had our own mess and everything, and the enlisted men went to their mess, and we went to ours, and started having, drinks around, And the old line chief come in, he said, Lieutenant, he said, you were low on fuel. I said, I know I was. He said, you've never made it around the pattern if you tried to. So,
Now, what was your target that day?
I just can't tell you. But I have written down my little book over there. But I think it was down in the southern part of France someplace. Can't name that place.
Well, you have Cognac.
Cognac. Okay.
Cognac, yes, you have it written here.
Yeah. Okay. That's where it was.
What was the target?
Well, I think that was probably the pens, the submarine pens.
Oh, yeah,
We
that's
found
right,
the-
they were there, yes.
Yeah. They had 12 feet of concrete on top of them,
Mhm.
We had armor-piercing bombs.
Okay. How many missions did you fly total?
29. See, they were flying 28 when I got there.
Mhm.
But as time went on, Jimmy Doolittle came, took over the 8th Air Force, and raised it to 30.
Did you ever see him?
No. But I had quite a few raids in, so I was prorated to 29.
Now, could you describe some of your raids, that stand out more than others, or are there some that stood out a little more than others?
Would you want to look at my little book? I got them all written down in there.
I'll bring you.
Now, did your aircraft receive a lot of flak damage?
Not an awful lot. And
Uh-huh.
we lost one engine one day. That was the only time.
Any encounters with German fighters?
Oh, yes, we got a lot of German fighters. Now, what day was it? Did the first raid?
Your first raid was December 31st, 1943.
Yeah, much. My eyes are kind
Now, did you kept this like a journal while you were over there?
of. Yeah, we weren't supposed to, but I sneaked that. Well, we had quite a lot of flack, but nothing too dangerous. I had a piece come in, went by my foot one day, and a few holes in the airplane. But as I say, we lost one engine one day, but no problem. It didn't windmill or anything. We could feather it.
Okay.
We got back all right.
So none of your crew members were ever wounded
Never
or?
got hurt, but our ball turret he had a problem. He was a little fella. In fact, his name was Little. But he would lose his oxygen down there once in a while. And the navigator, he was in charge of personnel. Every 15 minutes or even less than that, he would call in intercom and make everybody check in with him, if they're all right. But when the ball turret didn't check in, he knew something was wrong. So he got a portable oxygen bottle and went back, and you could reel that thing around inside so you get him out. And then they give him oxygen, and you have to get back in. But it was a dangerous spot, but that's about the only trouble we had physically, you know.
Okay.
What was the longest mission you were on, would you think?
I think it was a little over 10 hours. It was Stettin, Germany.
Were you on any raids at all into Berlin?
Oh yeah, I was there 5 times. You know.
What was that like? That was supposed to have been
That was a lot of flack
especially
there.
terrible.
Right. I was on the first raid in Berlin. Too.
You were?
Yeah, the very first raid, yeah.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, it was, we got over there and the weather was bad. It had socked in on it, and our group leader led us right into those clouds, and you just can't fly formation in clouds. So we kind of broke up right there and that day, and after, well, we had dropped their bombs, but there was B-17s flying this way. Boy, it was scary, but we got through it all right. But, then I think we probably went right back the next day.
How did you feel each day getting up and doing that?
Well, it was kind of hard, but they'd wake us up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd have to get ready and have our breakfast. And briefing, that was a critical time when we all got together in the briefing room, and they had the great big map over the curtain over it, and when they rolled the curtain back, and you'd hear the, oh.
All the groaning and complaining.
Where are we going today?
Okay, let's see.
What about when you had time off? Did you go into London?
Oh
or-
yeah, we went to London, and our group had a hotel reserved there for us in many rooms, so they had facilities for us when we went to London, yeah.
Mhm.
What were your relationships like with the English people?
I never had really much contact with them. A lot of guys went to the pubs, you know,
Mhm.
but I wasn't much of a drinking man. I didn't go to the pubs too much. But I mean, they were awful nice to us. I mean, in London, when you went there, they were, you know.
How would you rate the B-17 as a bomber? How did you feel about the B-17?
The best. That would take a lot of punishment. I've seen them come home with tough shape.
How did you rate the German 88s, the flak guns?
They were accurate, yeah. And then the old big ones, what was it, 100 and... See, the 88s had, when they burst, it would be a black burst, and the other one would be a gray burst. And they would go higher. When we were way up high, they could reach us then, too.
Mhm.
How did you rate your commanding officers?
They were super. And you mean combat officers?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. We had a colonel, he was he was a great flyer, and he would come out, and then after we got all through the briefing, okay, guys, he said, today we prang the Hun. And he said, let's go. And away we go.
What kind of medals and decorations and awards did you receive?
Well, I got the Air Medal, I think with 5 clusters, and the DFC, Distinguished Flying Cross, after I finished my missions. Of course, we didn't all finish the same time, see, because, well, like we might go on a mission and somebody would have a cold or something, couldn't go, we'd have to get a substitute.
Mm-hmm.
And one time my co-pilot, they wanted him to fly in the lead plane and as a tail gunner to watch the formation. So one time he didn't fly with me. So there was a few times when we didn't all fly together at all times, you know.
Mm-hmm. Did you have an incident that you thought was maybe the funniest or one that was most inspiring to you at all? That you
During the combat area?
Yes.
I don't know. Well, that second raid there, my first raid with the crew, that was about the scariest time. I mean, getting back to England and getting back on the ground, you know. But we always had the problem of sweating out our fuel, because to the target you'd use up 3/4 of your fuel before you got to the target. But on the way back we'd be laying down from high altitude and we didn't use so much fuel.
Did you ever have air cover on the way over and back?
With fighters?
Fighters,
Yeah, we
yes.
usually have fighters all, well, of course they couldn't go all the way with
Right.
until we got the P-51s
Mm-hmm.
and the P-38s. And of course the other fighters, the Spitfires and the P-47s, would take us, quite a ways into France, you know. And then they'd have to leave us because they didn't have the fuel, they'd have to go back. But when the P-38s and the P-51s came on, they would take us to the target area.
Did you ever see a German jet?
Oh yeah, yeah. Not a German jet, no.
Oh,
They didn't come in after I left.
after you left? Okay.
I've seen a German F-109 coming right straight at us with those cannon firing. You know. See all these little white dots coming at you.
Were there any persons that really impressed you while you were in service, maybe on your crew or other crews or officers?
Oh, no, not particularly, I don't think. We always respected our higher officers, you know. They were always, and most of them were, well, of course they weren't all combat men, but the ones that we contacted pretty much were, you know, combat personnel. And we kind of stayed together, pretty much.
When you returned to the States, when did you return?
Well, after I finished my missions in May 1st, 44, they sent me over to Wales to pick up a War-weary B-17 to fly home, which I didn't think much of. But what was I going to do? I was on my way home. So I went over there and they had no B-17, and they had a skeleton crew. They had a co-pilot and a navigator and engineer. That's all I had. And we had to take off in the night, and we had to fly out over the Atlantic 1,500 miles and then turn south to Africa. And we did. We got in Africa and in Marrakesh and landed, and it had a Bombay tank in it, and that fell out when we landed. So we got that repaired, and then from Marrakesh we flew down to Dakar, Africa, and that was all right. Didn't have any problem there, because I just got ready to take off, and this command car comes rushing down the runway, and so I held the airplane for a minute, and this guy got out. He was a colonel going home. I said, "Oh no." So he said, "You got to ride home?" I said, "Sure." So he got in with us. Of course, when he's on board, he's in command. Colonel is. So it was all right. We got along all right. So we flew from Dakar, North Africa, to Natal, Brazil. Landed there, and then next place was Trinidad. Got ready to land Trinidad, and the old colonel says, "I haven't landed one of these in a long time. Can I land it?" I said, "Okay." So he did, as best he could. So then we got back into Miami, Florida, where we ended up. And then they all left me, because they all wanted to get home, except the navigator. He was from New York City. He said, "I'll stay with you." They all called me Pop. And I said, "Okay."
Yeah, you must have been the oldest guy in the crew, right?
Oh, yeah. So,
How old were you at that time? About 25?
24, I think.
24?
And so he and I got in the airplane, the two of us, flying the B-17. And I said, "Well, you navigate it and I'll fly it." So we landed in Georgia to get fuel. And they got it all fueled up for us and everything. I went into operations to get clearance to Oklahoma City. And he said, "What's your weight and balance on that airplane?" I said, "What do you mean weight and balance? We don't have any weight." Well, it seems to have had all these new regulations. They had something like a slide rule for how much weight in the tanks they had and all that. I said, "Fully on that, we're going to Oklahoma City."
Okay, go ahead.
So the navigator and I walked right out of the plane. We left operations with no paperwork or anything. We were just cocky enough that we wouldn't take any bluff from anybody. So we got in the old B-17. We headed for Oklahoma City. He was navigating, and I was flying right down low where you could watch the cities and the railroad tracks and all that. So we had a good flight to Oklahoma City, landed there, and turned it over to the people there. And stayed there, I guess, one night, and then they put us on a train for New York City. And got in New York City December 7th, D-Day. And it was a great time. Great time in New York City that day for service people.
So where were you assigned after that?
After I had 2 weeks of rehabilitation down in Atlantic City. Then I was assigned to Buckley Field, Colorado, as an armament maintenance school. And from there, they sent me to Ardmore, Oklahoma as the maintenance officer for the combat crews. They were training combat crews there. And I had quite a few enlisted men that had come back from overseas, and a couple of new officers that had never been overseas. But we got along all right, except the crews that we were getting at that time, they were a lot younger, of course, and they just didn't give a darn. They'd go up the gunnery range, and of course you got to shoot so much ammunition, and they would shoot it up and burn the barrels. And they brought those barrels back into my armament offices. And when my enlisted men that had been in combat saw that, oh, they were upset, and they wanted to court-martial them, but no, we didn't go that far. But yeah, they were destroying their guns just for the heck of it, getting rid of the ammo.
Was there ever any chance that they were getting you ready to go out to the Pacific, or?
No, I had no indication of that at all.
Okay. When you heard about the end of the war in Europe, where were you and how did you feel about that?
Yeah, well, we rejoiced about it. We knew that was well done, you know.
Yeah. Did you recall ever, when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt, how you felt?
That didn't seem to affect us much, you know. We didn't. I mean, I'd seen Roosevelt. They'd been at some of the places when I was training, you know, and we'd have a parade. Me might be there, but I never paid too much attention to the political business, you know, about him meeting Churchill and, and Stalin and all that. And we just weren't interested in it, I guess.
Okay, when were you finally discharged?
In September 1945, up at Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. And that's where I discharged and got home a couple days afterwards.
Now, were any of your brothers in service, or?
Yeah, I had a brother who was in the field artillery, and he was out on the West Coast, and I met him when I was out there in cadet training one time. he went to officer's candidate school, and he ended up as a major in artillery in Italy.
Mhm.
And he got home out of the service about the same time I did. And there was a local business in a small town that we used to patronize. We were farm boys, you know, we had cows and we had to grind grain and all that. And they had a grist mill and we used to go there. So when we got home, one of these men, there was two guys running it, they approached us. Would you be interested? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, come and work for us for 6 months. So my brother and I did. We worked for those guys. They had a coal business and a coal pocket and a grist mill and feed and then some lumber, hardware. And we worked for 6 months, then we bought it. That was in 1946.
Mhm. Did you ever make use of the GI Bill?
No, never did anything with that at all.
How about the 5220 Club?
No.
Did you join any veterans organizations ever?
I did belong to one of them for a while. I forget now what it was. I guess I was in the VFW for a while, but I don't know. I didn't associate too much.
Mhm. Did you ever stay in contact with any of the guys that were on your crew?
Oh yeah, that's one thing that we have. My bomb group gets together every year. We've done that now for, I don't know when they did start it, but I've been going probably 20 years to every convention.
Oh,
We get together. I still have 4 men left,
oh.
and the rest of them passed away. But
Mhm.
at one time in Washington, we had a convention there, and I had 7 of my crews there at that time. That was the most we ever got together. And, so this year we go to down to Arlington in October, and there'll be 3 of us there again, I hope. One guy can't come because his wife has had a bad stroke and she can't travel. But I've
How do
enjoyed
you-
it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
Well, yeah. It made me realize, you know, what life is about, you know. And my crew, all of them have resolved to the same thing, that God was with us.
Mhm.
Every time we meet together, we always have prayer together, and they realized that somebody was helping us, you know.
Mhm. Well, you have a couple things you brought in. I don't know how to
Let's see.
do this one.
Maybe if you set it next to them, it'll be easier for me to focus in on it.
Can you see it?
Yep.
One of the guys in the group made up these maps for.
So those are all your missions
Yeah.
listed on the bottom, and then on the top you have the
If he can turn that a little bit, I'm getting the reflection of that lamp that's
Which
behind
way?
me. Yeah, that's good. I
That
just
way?
want to focus in on this here.
And then around the edges, names of the planes on our field.
Oh.
And my crew is down the center, they're in the middle.
Okay. It's about as good as I'm going to be able to get that.
My daughter made this up for me a few years ago.
I don't know if you're... Now, with this, now what is this patch up here?
That's our bomb group, Can Do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 405th bomb group.
Mm-hmm. And this patch?
That's by Squadron, the 365th Squadron.
Now you wore that on your jacket?
I didn't have mine on my jacket, but
Okay.
our co-pilot always wore his. But
Yeah. Did you ever have a decorated jacket, a
no, I
painted
never
one?
did. I never decorated mine at all.
And this is a picture of you here?
Yep. That's when I got my wings, I think.
You have your air medal and your wings,
DFC.
TFC.
And that's my short snorter money there when we went overseas.
Now what do you mean by that?
Well, when we went to England on the boat, they had different guys sign your $1 bill, they called it a short snorter, and I always hung on to that. Then the other money there was I picked up on the way home. Well, some of it is in France and some of it is in Brazil.
Okay.
And you had, could just hold this up, you kept a flight log, a diary?
Yep, that's in my diary. And I do have my logbook too with me.
Okay. I'll hold up his hat and his
There's your
flight
hat.
jacket. That's the actual hat you wore on your missions.
That's right, yep, same one.
Okay. It's got that great 50 mission crush look to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And could you tell us about those, please?
Headset, and it's been hanging around my garage. I cut the thing off because I was using it for running my trimmer. That's my little headset, yeah.
Wow.
You'd think
Okay.
you go over to the Wiley Brothers and buy a good headset.
You heard of Wiley Brothers?
I'm from Cambridge.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, good for you.
We buy at Wiley Brothers.
That's great.
Now, you tell us about that. That's your,
This is my dress
Right.
dress uniform.
Okay. Now what unit patch is that on your left shoulder?
There.
Yes.
What? Those over there?
this patch over here.
Oh, that's the 2nd Air Force.
Okay.
That was the training Air Force.
Okay.
And of course on this
And
side.
you have the 8th on
This
The
this
is-
side.
eighth. The 8th Air Force.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, do you want to flip that around so we can see the 8th patch? Okay, got it. Okay.
That's really beat up. No,
Still fit into it?
I can't put it on, but
And you wore that jacket on all your missions?
pretty much, yeah. I think it took all of them. See, the rest of us are all gone.
Uh-huh.
But it was quite a lot of money, even the way it is, I guess. They had a guy offering $1,500 for it.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your interview.
Okay.
Send you a copy of the tape in that'll be a week or so.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
copy that. I got to get the
Yeah, okay.
copy
know-
some of the pages and.
If you could make just the, all of his missions.
Do you want a copy of all those?
Yes, we'd like to.
Okay, take them
do
out and
that.
copy them, sure.
Well, I think if you,
Yeah.
there's an enlarger on it.
Yeah. I can copy
Oh,
them.
okay.
Just up to there.
Leave them right in there then?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
yeah, we
okay.
don't have to take them out.
Oh, okay.